Right, thank you so much for staying with us. Time now for To The Point. And like I said before, our conversation tonight is on the safety of journalists with my guests, Victor Bwire, Director, Media Training and Development, MCK, Akello Odonyo, Secretary General, Crime Journalists Association of Kenya. Like I said, we shall be joined by Isaiah Gwengi, who is a journalist from Standard Media Group, Kelechi Emekalam, a journalist in Nigeria, and Kanari Mugume, a journalist from Uganda. But straight on to the point. And tonight we discuss the safety of the messenger, the safety of my colleagues and I, the safety of journalists. Now, this day, which is the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists, it was celebrated or commemorated on November the 2nd. Of course, this is our discussion tonight. And let's get some history. So the United Nations General Assembly proclaimed the day to be marked on November 2nd. Now, the date was chosen in commemoration of the assassination of two French journalists in Mali on 2nd November 2013. The resolution urged member states to implement definite measures countering the present culture of impunity. Let's take a look at the theme. And this year's theme at the 2023 observance seeks to raise awareness of the main challenges faced by journalists and communicators in the exercise of their profession and to warn of the escalation of violence against and repression against them. Let's talk numbers now, which, like I always say, they never lie. Now listen to this. Since the year 1993, more than 1,600 journalists have been killed for reporting the news and bringing information to the public. In 9 out of 10 cases, the killers go unpunished. In fact, only 14% of cases of crimes against journalists are currently considered judicially resolved. Data from the last 10 years reveals that 893 journalists have been killed from around the world. Let's pause there, okay? At this point, I want to engage my guests, Mr. Victor Bwire and Madam Akello Odonyo. Your reaction to this? I mean, this figure is disturbing. It's shocking. Who wants to go first?
Ladies first.
Ladies first.
Yeah, well, it is really, it's not as shocking as, it's not shocking for us journalists because having been in the field, you almost go through this.
We know what happens.
We know what happens, but really we know that something needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How about this? In 9 out of 10, that's 90%, the killers go unpunished.
Not even killers, even in any kind of violations, there's barely any jurisprudence on, cases against journalists. Either the prosecutors or the case just doesn't go through for many reasons. We'll talk about the reasons in the debate. Yeah.
Mr. Victor?
I mean, it's unprecedented, unacceptable. I mean, that such things are happening. Yet many of our countries talk about right to life, protection of safety, provision, looking for creating jobs for people. Those statements, sometimes when you hear them, then you look at such statistics, then you're wondering, 9 out of 10 just means that none of the cases, nobody ever bothers about it. Yet some of even the prosecutors themselves, the judges, are covered by journalists. So in many of these things, and that's why the issue of impunity becomes a critical thing, that if people would do this to journalists who are seen to be fourth estate, who are seen to be enablers to access information, and people can do this to such a profession and nothing happens and it's usual, then it sends a very wrong message that then what our criminal justice system are doing. And there are a number of protection, international, local, and regional protection mechanisms, laws, provisions that would obviously, and in fact, the worrying thing is most of these crimes against journalists are done by people who are known. Sometimes they are documented. So it's not any investigation that is complicated. Even now there's AI and you can use anything to trace some of these. Right. So that level of impunity worries people, and it's worrying, and we should be concerned about it, not just as journalists, but as a country. We need just to look at this and get irritated and get annoyed.
You said no one ever bothers about this. Why?
If anybody bothered, then it wouldn't be talking about 9 out of 10. That tells you something.
Why do you think they don't bother?
And where I work,
care about us, about our safety?
I think the bigger issue, and I see because Media Council documents some of these cases, KUJ, KCA, and other people at Core 19. It's not that, and many of these cases, we put them. I think averaging every 2 weeks, we are writing a letter to the Inspector General of Police to investigate a case, at least relating to journalists, and nothing just happens. Letters are written where officers, maybe for example, security agencies have been involved to IPOA. Then sometimes the questions they ask you, I mean, they just discourage you from even pursuing. We have written to, and on the same day you are mentioning, the 2nd of November, the DPP was the chief guest during the same event, and those statements we had them 3-4 years ago. We'll turn no stone unturned, we'll do what. But we go back to the same thing. And in this country, it's a history. For the many years we have been here, there are only 4 successful prosecutions. One was Vincent Makori, who was tortured during Moi's time, Kanu, long time ago.
That's a long time.
And it even took years for him when he had been awarded some damages. It took years to be paid. And then there was Wallace Gachere and a special branch, again Moi's time, who again, a successful case, he was made to jump through a window by the special branch then. A case took so many years. Then we have 2 more cases, one in the Bondo, Siaya, where an OCS attacked a KNA and another staff. Then there are 2 cases in Busia where bodyguards or informal security agencies attached to then the former governor of Busia, Ojamong, attacked 2 journalists, Franklin Bwire, then by Citizen, and John Mond of Standard at that time. Those are the 4 only cases that are, but yet, like this year only, Media Council has documented nearly 100 and something cases. During the Maandamano, that just short period, we had 25 cases.
Yes.
Last year we had, I think, 90 cases. These things are there, and some of them are written, documented with OB numbers, with evidence. Some of the journalists have even P3, they have been injured. Right now we are struggling with one, which everybody saw in Baringo, where, a DCI guy just, during Corona, I remember in the same Baringo, a DCI officer arresting and refusing on a camera for a journalist for a year, and nothing. And these cases are put internal police, but nothing happens.
Right. Okay, let's move on. And remember, these statistics are from, you can see it here, UNESCO, okay? That's the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. That is UNESCO. Now, more statistics, because UNESCO further says that 117 journalists were killed in 2020, between 2020 and 2021. The data shows that there are no safe spaces for journalists because 91 of the 117 journalists killed then were killed while away from their offices. Most killings occurred outside their newsrooms. Some journalists were murdered in the street or in their vehicles, and some were kidnapped and then found dead. Several were killed in front of their family members, including their children. Now, let's move on. And according to UNESCO still, in 2021, and this is at this point I'll engage Mara Makelo, the percentage of women among all journalists killed almost doubled, rising to 11% from 6%. The previous year, available data as of 30th September 2022 showed that again, 11% of killings so far have been women journalists. And before, Akelo, I get your thoughts on that, let's take a look at online violence, because women journalists are particularly impacted by threats and attacks, notably by those made online. According to UNESCO's discussion paper, The Chilling Global Trends in Online Violence Against Women Journalists, 73% of the women journalists surveyed said they had been threatened, intimidated, and insulted online in connection with their work. Why?
It is a case. Just the other day when there was a member of Cabinet Secretary lashing out at the media, we, the Crime Journalists Association of Kenya, released a statement, to just condemn the actions. And even with that, there was already people going online, and there were trolls, even, people talking about my person, and it was other people, even including people who are in the media. So you can really understand that journalists, especially women, are really targeted, and online, it gets worse because I don't know what it is about women that just motivates the perpetrators to just keep going. I think it is somewhere where they want you to give up, to just lose it, and you know, it's crime.
Throw in the towel.
Yeah, just leave the thing and just continue or move on.
What's your experience like as a woman journalist?
Especially as a crime reporter, you know, you're a first respondent, especially in the scenes of crime, and most of the time you will be experiencing these things firsthand. And sometimes you're likely to be the victim of harassment or intimidation when you just get to the ground. And even though we have these statistics that say at least 73%, I think the number is even way higher because a lot of people do not report. I personally did not even report. I just noted that, but I thought I can handle this. You know, sometimes you say, I can handle this. I don't need to take this anywhere. But I'm sure if everyone who has been violated was to speak up, this number would really go higher than that.
And that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Let's come home now and take a look at some numbers from here. Kenya, okay? And we're really coming home because we start with your home of untold stories. That is here, TV47. Now, earlier this year, during the anti-government protest held in the country, if you like, maandamano, a police officer fired a tear gas canister at TV47's cameraman John Nganga while covering the protest along Haile Selassie Avenue in Nairobi and injured him on the leg. Now, there's more. Because listen to this. On that same day, that is March 27th, a Maandamano Monday, like they were called, an NTV journalist reported being asked by police in Nairobi to delete photos from her phone. That's one. An NTV reporter ran into trouble with police officers at the KICC after they said they did not want the media around. 3 citizen reporters came under attack from knife-wielding gang in Kibra. There is more, guys. We're not done. A Nation.Africa journalist reported seeing a female Asian reporter being attacked by goons. On the very same day, a Nation.Africa correspondent in Kericho was attacked by goons in Kapsowit. An Africa Uncensored co-founder, that is John Allen Namu, reported that 2 of his colleagues were arrested by police in Mathare, and a freelance journalist said he was attacked by goons in Kibra. Very, very important to note, all these incidences happened in just one day. But listen to this. It did not stop there. It did not stop here, because 2 days later, on March 30th, a Maandamano Thursday, a police officer fired a tear gas canister at NTV cameraman Eric Isinta's face and wounded him. Standard journalist Timon Abuna was also wounded in the head. Now, that caused so much uproar from the media fraternity. It was heartbreaking, to say the least. Mr. Victor, this is what you were talking about?
Yes, and this happened, like some of these cases you are mentioning. You quickly see two trends. One is largely members of the public, much as we call them goons and what, but these are members of the public. That we are seeing trends where it's no longer now state agents that are main perpetrators, but we see now goons who have been mobilized by either their supporters or who believe their people are under attack, and they attack, and they take law into their hand and attack. 2, in cases like where, for example, those 2 cases you are mentioning, letters were written to IPOA to take action against those officers who threw canisters directly, and obviously your gate is at mine, and that's what we are talking about, impunity. And sometimes even the questions you are asked even just discourages people from pursuing. It's just like, I mean, a bad example, but just like the rape case, where yes, we have desks in police stations and what, but sometimes when those things happen, the same thing, that yes, people will follow, but the kind of questioning, the kind of information some of these institutions ask from you, they just discourage us from pursuing some of these matters, because it becomes a challenge. And Grace, you know, these are not the first cases. There are quite. Francis Nyaruru was killed in 2009. A journalist in Kisii. I mean, Kitui in Eldoret. You remember those are cases. We had Brian Wesonga in Mombasa. We had another guy in Mombasa. So it's not, and all these cases, in fact, UNESCO Director General keeps writing to Kenya every year to ask the status. In the cases like John Kitui in Eldoret, even the person who was arrested with his phone was never questioned by the police. So it starts from the investigation, and that's why at the UN level they're talking about the 3 Ps: protection, promotion, and prosecution. And the weakest link is the prosecution. That prosecution, how they never find enough evidence even to take a person to charge. Remember, there's a case in Nakuru where a politician shot at journalists and photos are there and everything. You remember, nothing happened up to date. And sometimes, okay, they give, reasons, but the manner and yet even the UNESCO itself has prescribed, has taken prosecutors to training, judicial officers to training, to handle matters journalistic investigations. Because in a number of these cases, the threshold sometimes is like the ICC. The threshold is not like the criminal case, some of these things. Because if you look at the laws under journalistic privileges, when somebody denies a journalist information to do a story, you don't need him to have beaten him to establish one.
That's true.
So that reluctance and casual manner in which those cases are taken irritates and even discourage journalists from pursuing.
Right. Okay. So if you thought this was it, you have to tighten your belt because there's more. So just this past week, listen to this. Ken Ruto of NTV was in police custody at Kabarnet Police Station from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. after being verbally summoned by Baringo County detectives to record a statement over his coverage of the bandit attack at Kapindasum Primary School, Baringo South, last week. Okay? Let's take a look at some statistics from the Media Council of Kenya here, because MCK has documented 107 cases of freedom violations against the members of the Fourth Estate. That is us since January 2023. And that is what Mr. Victor was talking about earlier on. During the marking of the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists, Broadcasting and Telecommunications Principal Secretary Professor Edward Kisiangani, through Information Secretary Judy Munyenye, reaffirmed the government's commitment to the protection of press freedom, the safety of journalists, and the nurturing of an environment where the media thrives without fear. He actually said, let's quote him, "It is a worrying trend that out of these cases, 54 were physical assaults on journalists. Shockingly, 34 of these assaults were orchestrated by members of the public, whereas none of these perpetrators have been arrested." Exactly what we were talking about earlier on. None of this, most of these cases are rarely, we rarely see prosecutions to this, okay? So, Mr. Victor also did mention the Director of Public Prosecutions, that is Renson Ingonga, who also graced the Kenya Editors Guild event to commemorate that day. And there he promised to create a safe environment for journalists to operate. He said investigations and prosecution of crimes committed against journalists will be expedited. In fact, let's quote him, "I undertake to ensure that crimes against journalists are not only expeditiously prosecuted, but I also endeavor to hold those found culpable to account, no matter their stature in the society." Akelo, are we seeing this on the ground?
Definitely not. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having the only four cases having ever been prosecuted in all the years that that Media Council has been in operation. And for a country that really, boasts having a very progressive constitution and a very expansive Bill of Rights, this is really, it's just that we are really good on paper, but in real sense, we are broken. There's something that is definitely missing, because if we have very good laws, then how come we're not getting as many prosecutions, as many convictions as we should? And some of the cases that are caused by the public, for example, are actually perpetuated by the political leaders and other people, who are in places where they should be making statements that are tolerant. But when they charge them, because they have supporters, politics is very volatile, and people have their supporters, and they really believe in the things, on the statements that the politicians make. So if a politician says, the media is Githeri media, and even if sometimes you see the comments, say a journalist will say something that happened to them or something that they encountered, say an attack in the field, and he'll post that on social media. But the responses, you can see it from the public, that the members of the public are actually losing confidence, and they're like, it serves you right, you're on your own. So you really, instead of evoking outrage, instead of this perpetration of these violations making people, angry, they're just flowing. It's just like, they have been charged such that they believe that there's something probably that is not happening right, or that the media is not doing right.
And you've mentioned our leaders and our politicians, and I'll take you back to then Trade and Industry CS, Moses Kuria, now Public Service CS, because he did attack a media group in country using unprintable words, words that we cannot even use in this program right now, threatening to sack any state official who would place adverts with the media. Mr. Victor, this is for you. But what we saw from the President, William Ruto, later on, yes, he did defend the media, but also defended the CS. No, I'm not allowed to use that on air. No, you know
You'll be arrested. You'll be arrested.
But I mean, where are we safe?
Now, the principle is, while there's no standard government statement that journalists must be attacked, I mean, it's not like it's a government policy that the government should be journalists should be attacked, and that's why when you are quoting your former statement by the chief, Information Secretary, Madam Judy Munyini, there's no stand. But state officers in their individual private capacities would perpetuate attacks against journalists, but it's not a government policy that they should attack journalists. You obviously know that a number of those people in government and who make those statements are media owners, so they never mean it. But like Akello said, once it's taken by supporters that even our leader has told that media is these are people we should not respect, then it's obviously that tells you why in your statistics you see a number of goons or members of the public attacking the journalists. That is no longer now state officers who are the main perpetrators, but members of the public who now think, given that our leaders said media is useless, or if our leaders say this, then it's just good we attack them. So that, and then the other thing, because attacks are not just the physical attacks. We have, for example, if somebody denies you access to information, if somebody, for example, humiliates you, and when Akello was talking about, for example, the statistic about female, you notice that a number of female is things like body shaming, trolling online.
That's what they
and those are threats again. And a number of them, because like when such statements like ni prostitutes on Kimadi Street, when somebody says such statements, then people think journalists are that, and which is wrong, obviously. So that discrediting, that's creating mistrust, that's creating makes threats, because then once you have been, for example, done that, then self-censorship starts. You will not feel free to go and do your work, and then kills journalism, because journalism thrives in an environment where journalists are respected, media products are respected. So that's what we are saying, that people must be cautious about how you treat, how you want to mobilize people against journalists. But in addition to those external threats, like those physical threats, body shaming, online, but there are also internal things that we must also talk about. That if also our media houses do not support their journalists, do not provide a safe newsroom working environment for journalists, then the threats also supersedes even the external ones, because we also have now a number of internal threats, journalists against journalists, editors against journalists, journalists against media houses, that also do not, because in most of these, we must stand together as one profession, irrespective. You worked in another media house before you came here, and you might move, you never know. So when we start fighting media owner wars, and journalists forget that there are journalists who are just professional people giving service and they can work for any media house, then that's also, because we also see it in the field where mainstream media starts harassing community media journalists or local-based or correspondents, and we see that also a lot. That those of you who are working in the Big 6 or Big 7 think that people who work for community media or for local-based media are not journalists like you. Yet some of these people are your classmates. You're in the same class, just that they're working there, you're working here. So also those things we see even in WhatsApp groups, journalistic WhatsApp groups, where a few journalists want to harass others, while we are the people who are supposed to be protecting freedom of expression. But more of our journalists are very extreme. They will never want to listen to another person. They think their opinion must always count. So we also see those in intra-media disputes, which is also dangerous for the profession.
You know what I like to say about that? I say we are one big office. You know, all of us, local media houses, international, just different branches.
That's
Because what
exactly.
I'm doing here and what I did at my previous work, it's pretty much the same.
The same.
It's one big office. You know, Akelo, we have been accused as journalists of being extortionists. I don't want to say that loud. And I'm bringing it up because it came from a forum that the two of you were present at last week in Kisumu on this day when we commemorated the International Day on Crimes Against Journalists. But the allegations of corruption, of bribery within us, that probably could be an excuse for people to treat us the way they do.
Well, yeah, and when we're talking about impunity, we rush to look for external sources about impunity from, state operatives, from, who and who. But we don't look inside, we don't look internally to see, where it starts from. Because I say, if, say, the public confidence in the media is eroding, and they're now losing confidence in journalists, there has to be a reason. And now we need to really, look deep in and see what are the reasons that are causing this. Because impunity, say, is not just attacks or this, even low pay or no pay at all, like we're seeing for some media houses. Journalists are going for months without pay. That in itself is impunity against the reporters who are working for them. So, if we are to handle these, we really need to handle it wholesome. We need to start internally and see what can we do, because we understand that, yeah, there are also challenges with media houses, because it also starts from the government when the revenues are choked and so the media houses are not making enough. But if you're having an employee who is working for you and you're expecting the employee to be professional as well, if you are to be professional, then there has to be a balance. So the allegations of bribery come in, there are cases, and even people, the people we talk to, people in authority, do complain about some journalists, asking for, just directly asking for money. I mean, for me to publish this story, you have to give me something. Ama unaniacha aje, ya chai, ya macho, something, which shouldn't be. We should reclaim the noble profession. And sometimes it's not just ya chai, ya macho. Sometimes they really come with allegation. We are going to publish this information if you do not give us this. So we want, we've had this, and probably they've not even had, they're just coming up with this. And people are scared of the media. People do not want negative publicity. Say if you're running a business and you've had a journalist approaches you with negative publicity, then you really want to. So I think internally where we should start is pay journalists first. At least take care of the people. And we have labor laws that take care of that as well. So if we're saying the rule of law, we need to really implement every bit of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we take a break at this point, on to the point. I like that. We come back with Isaiah Gwengi of Standard Group, Kelechi Emekalam from Nigeria, and Kanare Mugume from Uganda. Let's take that break. Stay with us. All right, thank you so much for staying with us. We carry on with our conversation and to the point tonight on the safety of us, the safety of my colleagues and I, the safety of journalists, with Mr. Why do I keep mixing that up? Mr. Victor Bwire, Director, Media Training and Development, MCK, Akelo Odonyo, Secretary General, Crime Journalists Association of Kenya. We'll be joined shortly by Isaiah Gwengi, a journalist with the Standard Media Group, Kelechi Emekalam, a journalist from Nigeria, and Kanare Mugume, a journalist from Uganda. And we still have to the point, because I want us to look at some numbers, and we're crossing borders now to Uganda, and we're having this, of course, because of Mr. Kanare Mugume. Now, here are the numbers. So 2 journalists have been killed between 1992 and 2017. This is according to the Committee to Protect Journalists, that is in 2017. Now, a total of 113 cases of media freedom attacks were reported in Uganda in 2016. At least 45 of these cases were arrests and detentions. 27 cases were related to assault, while 11 cases involved blocking access to information. Now, this is according to ResearchGate, authored by Florence Namasinga Selnes and Gerald Walulia, both of the Makerere University in Uganda. Of course, Mr. Canary shall react to this later on when he joins us. But let's head over to Nigeria now and take a look at the numbers, because at least 19 journalists have been killed over the years. However, no one has ever been charged with any crime for such attacks or punished for such offenses. This is according to Media Rights Agenda in Nigeria. That almost sounds, not even almost, it's similar to us here in Kenya. Now, again, as the world marked the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists on November the 2nd, Media Rights Agenda Executive Director this is a mouthful, Edetian Ojo, in Nigeria, he said, and I quote, "Nigeria appears to be suggesting that attacking or killing journalists is acceptable and will attract no consequences." Now, still in Nigeria, and Action Aid Nigeria says that this year, 2023, marked a significant general election, which of course it did, during which at least 14 journalists and media workers faced unlawful detention, harassment, or physical assaults while covering Nigeria's presidential and federal elections. Days leading up to the polls were marred by further incidents, including attacks and unjust denial of access for journalists covering election preparations. Now, Action Aid demands that President Ahmed Tinubu Bola and all state governors take a bold step to order immediate, thorough, and transparent investigations into these incidents with a fervent call for accountability, And at this point, we have Kelechi Emekalam. Kelechi, good evening. It's what? It's 8 p.m. in Nigeria. Can you hear me?
Yes, it is. 8:06. 8:06 precisely.
8:06 to be precise. I like that, Kelechi. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
It looks like it's not different. It's not any different from the situation here in Kenya, in Nigeria, is it?
Absolutely, you are very correct. The case isn't much different from what's obtained in Kenya and even other, parts of Africa. Here in Nigeria, like you mentioned, we have cases of journalists who have suffered great losses, who have been beaten, who have been maimed, been assaulted, arrested, and even in some cases who've lost their lives in the course of doing their jobs. Now, a good example, like you mentioned, is the recent elections, which many had reported was fraught with irregularities and violence. And as the Action Aid had reported, about 14 newsmen were unlawfully detained earlier this year during that elections. Now, the role, let me just go back to the role as that journalists play in the society as the fourth estate of the realm and the watchdogs. It's pivotal to nation building. It's pivotal to accountability, to transparency, and all of that. And those who are averse to these positives because of their personal gains, their personal aggrandizements, they would urge towards doing anything to ensure that the truth isn't uncovered. Secondly, a good percentage of news organizations are owned and run by those who are or have been in the corridors of power. So sadly, what happens as a journalist most times here is that you have to, play to the galleries in your reportage. Another worrying trend is that you would be used as a tool to battle the opposition of your master, who happens to be, paying the piper. And if you choose not to, you are pinned down for your journey to job loss. So to say. Now, this is not to say that there are no independent organizations who stand for the truth, but what we have sometimes, even those organizations who stand for the truth, the regulatory agencies who are under government control, they like the broadcast, especially for the broadcast media, they come breathing down your necks. Now, The attacks are from everywhere, from poor remuneration. As we speak, there are journalists who go home with far less than $100 every month, and with emphasis on far less. This is a nation in an economy today where food inflation is on the rise. You go to the market, you can't even, if you take $100 to the market, you can't buy anything.
Right.
You can't fill up your basket. So these are the challenges that we face as journalists. So it's quite a daunting task, executing your task as a journalist here, keeping up with accountability, keeping
Right.
up with good governance and all of that. So,
Right, Kelechi.
it's a problem, yeah.
Sure. There is a very heavy statement, in my opinion, from the Media Rights Agenda Executive Director, please help me with his name, Kelechi Ojo, Mr. Ojo, Edetayan, my goodness. I feel like I'm massacring the name. So he said Nigeria appears to be suggesting that attacking or killing journalists is acceptable and will attract no consequences. That's pretty heavy, Kelechi.
It is heavy, and it's an indictment on the part of the state actors. When we see a situation where people are being maimed, people are being killed, journalists are being attacked, and nobody is brought to book. I mean, no, we don't find the perpetrators. We don't find investigations ongoing to arrest, to put this menace in check. And sometimes you even find out that the state actors are sometimes responsible for some of these actions, and just to say on the side. But then it's a sad situation that we have here, and until we begin to tackle, state actors must take responsibility, because journalists are citizens as well. Mm-hmm. We are doing our jobs, we are executing the tasks that have been given to us, and so we have to be, taken care of as well. Right. And if in the event that this doesn't happen, we're just edging towards a chaotic situation in our country.
Right. Kelechi, my last question to you would be your experience as a female journalist in Nigeria, because I don't know why we are targeted as female journalists. Earlier on we had statistics indicating that 73% of women journalists that were surveyed in that, survey by UNESCO have experienced online violence, a form of online violence.
Well, I would say that I've had, a few of my experiences, and some of my colleagues as well, female colleagues, who've had experiences in the course of doing our jobs. I recall once that I had to actually leave a workplace, a place I had worked before, because the environment was very toxic. It wasn't a conducive environment for me to work in. I wasn't, I wasn't flourishing there. I had a male boss who was just being very antagonistic for whatever reasons that were, that he deemed fit. But I've also had, female colleagues who come forth and share their experiences, sexual harassment in workplaces, and then, we don't get paid as much as the male colleagues.
Right.
Well, that was before, but then we're trying to correct that trend,
right.
And so many other incidences. So we find ourselves in situations where it's quite dicey, and we're just thriving to make sure that we do our part in society to make things work.
Right.
And it behoves on government and other key players to help us to do our jobs. Mm-hmm. To make sure that there's a level playing ground, there's a conducive environment for us to thrive as journalists, not just female journalists, male journalists as well.
Right.
Because they're also being attacked.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kelechi Emekalam, a journalist. They're joining us all the way from Nigeria. Thank you so much, Kelechi. As always, this is the second time you're gracing our show. We appreciate it. Thank you for your time and your contribution, Kelechi. Okay. Do we have Mr. Isaiah Gwengi?
Yes, I'm in.
Oh, great. Isaiah, karibu sana. Thank you for joining us. He is a journalist from the Standard Media Group. Isaiah, I want us to quickly, as briefly as possible, get your story, your experience in regards to our topic today.
Okay, good evening, Grace. Good evening to Victor and Akelo. Actually, I've had two experiences. One happened in 2017 on 22nd of March. Then the second one happened in July 7th. That was on Sabasaba. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, the two incidences happened in the hands of police officers. The first incident, which happened in 2017, happened at night. Actually, when no one was there to witness what was happening. And I was attacked by around 7 police officers who were armed, and I was tortured for more than 4 hours. Before I was taken to a police cell. Actually, at the police cell, there was nothing to be charged with. Mm-hmm. That was the saddest part of it, because I was arrested alongside human rights activists. We were tortured for around 4 hours. We were taken to the police cell where we were to be booked, but there was nothing to charge us with. Mm-hmm. So we were freed the following morning. The second incident happened when I was covering the Sabasaba demonstrations in Bondo town. In the morning, that morning we had, I was at the police station, the same police station, covering a shooting incident where a police officer shot himself and also shot the wife. So I was there in the morning to cover the incident. Then after that, I went to file my story before the demonstration started. So when I joined, and I was now, I'd finished filing my story, I was now in the field to cover the demonstration. That's when I was attacked by around 10 police officers who were led by an OCS. So the two incidences, the first incident, I made a report, I gave my statements, my case was picked by I4 and the National Police Service, but to date, I think we only got the progress of our case in May this year. Mm-hmm. That's when we were told that our file had been forwarded to the ODPP. They had done their work, and finally they had completed the case, and there were 2 recommendations. Mm-hmm. And as we speak, I've never seen those recommendations, because the I4 guys, they only told us about the recommendations. They are the ones who have the file. Right. But we have never seen that file. So access, because investigations were being done on us, but we've not been able to get that file to see what the 2 recommendations. Mm-hmm.
Isaiah, yeah. I'm curious about what these 2 really, really unfortunate incidents, which most definitely should not have happened, did to you psychologically, sir. I mean, to you, to your family, your spouse, your children.
The first incident happened when my second born, I have 3 children. Actually, my second born was around 2 years old when this incident happened. So he has been growing up hearing about these stories of what happened to me. Because when I was arrested, no one knew where I was. No one knew where I was taken. No one knew what happened to me. Mm-hmm. So by that time, my wife was we were expecting our 3rd born. Mm-hmm. So up to that time, yeah, my wife heard about it, I think towards midnight. That's when she heard about it, but she had to come to the police station the following morning. So yeah, so it really affected my family in a way, because today I've realized that my boy, whenever he sees a police officer, then he becomes a bit afraid of the police officers, maybe from the stories that he heard about what happened to me.
Right.
Then also psychologically, from that incident, anytime I hear something that like a bang, then I get scared. Like when somebody drops something, like even a spoon, then I get scared.
Right.
Because when this incident happened, I didn't get enough trauma counseling. So it's something that has been affecting me, because I also avoided, since that day, I've been avoiding to go out, either to late in the night.
Right.
I always get home by 7, I'm always at home.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Isaiah Gwengi. Really unfortunate there. I shall give Mr. Victor and Madam Akello a chance to, react to that and what he's talking about not receiving trauma counseling. We shall get to that, but I want us to wrap up with this first. Thank you, Isaiah, for your time, for your contribution. We do appreciate it, okay? So, still on attacks against journalists. Now, this next one is heartbreaking. It happened on Kenyan soil. You might remember it. A Pakistani journalist, Arshad Sharif, was killed on October the 23rd, 2022, when the car he was in with another Pakistani man sped up and drove through a roadblock checkpoint outside the Kenyan capital in Kajiado, to be precise. We shall again talk about that. But there are more deaths because, according to the Committee to Protect Journalists, the Israel-Palestine war had, as of November 3rd, that's on Friday, claimed the lives of 36 journalists, 36, and media workers. Of the 36, 31 are Palestinian, 4 Israeli, and 1 Lebanese. Now, 8 journalists were reported injured, 3 journalists were reported missing. 8 journalists were reported arrested. There have been multiple assaults, threats, cyber attacks, censorships, and killings of family members. That's it, yeah? And this data, once again, is from the Committee to Protect Journalists. Mr. Victor, I mean, why all this? There's so much you have to react to with so little time.
Yeah, and that's what we are talking about, the solidarity. Because we are now talking about when we have developed safety charters, media houses have signed, editors, media owners. We have done national safety mechanisms. We have done safety guidelines, books, charters. We have done training for journalists. We have done trauma counseling. But like we are saying, some of these things also come low. Like if, for example, we were to give you even safety gear, it's a requirement by the law that you can't keep a bulletproof jacket, you can't keep those bulletproof. So those things must be addressed. I mean, the issue of labor laws, occupational health. See, there are things that are very basic that you go to work. Some of you work right now is 10. How do you go home? You know, some of our employers don't even care about some of those things. People say,
Okay, I must say there's transport here. At TV47, there's transport for us.
Thank you.
I had to say that.
Thanks. I mean, in some stations, I was asking, we were just joking before we come here, what is safety even to access to newsroom? In some of newsroom, somebody can walk in and walk out without, there are very basic safety measures that we need just to look at. Our labor laws, if our employers were following the labor laws, employ journalists, occupational health, pay them, get them insurances when they're going to work. Those are basic labor laws. But the impunity thing we talk about, that you will employ somebody, you not pay, you not give them a safe and working environment, and nothing happens. It's one of the things we are addressing, and meetings have been held, discussions are being held. Some media houses do not even allow their journalists to belong to unions or associations, And yet we are the people who write about right of others to associate to do. So some of these things are very basic things, but they have huge implications.
Right.
We now have a safety fund. I mean, if somebody told you we have safe houses for journalists in Kenya, you will not believe, because Kenya is not at war, but these things are happening. So we must...
We have that?
I mean, We have journalists who have had to leave this country. Where is Purity Mwambia, for example? Has anybody bothered to know where he went? I mean, there are people like Ami Ombara, who was a bureau chief for Standard. So these things
John
happen.
Allen and Muhammad Ali.
I mean, you have seen. So these things happen, but we are in denial. We say Kenya is at peace, those things don't happen. But these numbers are happening. At local level, at the county level, look at what is happening in Baringo. I've just shared with you another one. In 2 days' time, Baringo journalists have gone through hell. The Ken Ruto you mentioned. Now, yesterday again, another journalist was mishandled in Baringo and other areas, I mean, in other towns. So these things are happening. In Garissa, there was a journalist who was summoned by the anti-terrorism police unit 3 days ago. So these things are happening, and we must reach a stage and say, but media houses have also done well. A number of media houses have started trauma counseling for their journalists. If somebody wanted that help, they are doing it. Some media houses have started safety training for journalists. I know a number of media houses have those protection gear, the bulletproof and the rest. A number of things are happening, but we need consolidated efforts. We need to raise these things at a bar, because some of these questions are being asked to Kenya at the Human Rights Council. The UNESCO has been writing to Kenya to want to know status of some of these investigations.
Yeah.
Under the SDG 16A, safety and security, we have been writing reports, and a number of gaps have existed. So it would help us. The killing of that Pakistani journalist in Kenya made Kenya to drop in the ranking from number 69 to 119 in a year.
19, not even 16.
And I mean, number 116.
116
just the
out of
killing
200.
After just one.
That's
and you can
terrible.
see the huge implications. So if we are talking about creating an environment where investors should come in Kenya, at the same time, we are doing or allowing one incident that will create us to cancel all the gains we have made.
Right.
Then
But sir, what more should or is MCK doing? Because part of your mandate is to ensure the protection of our rights and privileges as journalists, yeah? You have made statements, you have written letters, you did say that. But at the same meeting you were in Kisumu last week, sir, you were urged to write more of these cases to the office of the DPP.
We have done a lot. We have supported cases to court. Some of the cases it just takes long, and we have given rapid response. We have taken journalists to hospital. We have replaced cameras, working equipment. We have done trainings for journalists, guidelines for, there's a media support fund where journalists who are in trouble are helped. We have relocated journalists from one area of the country to another in safe hiding for quite some time.
What more do you intend to do?
But what is not happening, and we are is the prosecution. I told you there are 3 P's: promotion, protection, and promotion. We have done well in the protection and promotion, but prosecution, and we are not prosecutors ourselves. So that's why the discussion, the dialogue must be with the ODPP, with the Inspector General of Police, that something must be done.
Right.
And that's the engagement we have, and that's why we invited them. While the DPP was at the Kenya Media Sector, we had the Assistant Director of Prosecution in Kisumu, and the discussion is we have agreed to fast track some of those cases, and we give ourselves a time frame that we must review and see what has happened.
Right, and it's a good thing you actually did that, because some of these people, it's kind of hard to get them on such a show like this one. So you did well in getting them, and of course the Kenya Editors Guild as well. Madam Akello, trauma counseling, because Isaiah there is saying that he did not have that, Does CIJAC, is it CIJAC? Yes, CIJAC help its journalists in terms of this? Like, do you provide any form of counseling for your journalists?
CIJAC on its own does not provide the counseling, but we do partner with other organizations to, like International Justice Mission, who help in counseling journalists. And it's not just journalists who report on crime or who are members of the Crime Journalists Association of Kenya. It's journalists from everywhere. And I'm actually surprised when Mr. Bwire here says that, there are media houses that provide trauma counseling for their journalists. Because every time we get journalists for that, we do it quarterly, none of them has ever gone for any sort of counseling. None of them. They tell us, we resort to alcohol or other forms of, letting off. But I think media houses can start small, and they can start there, just by providing mental wellness for their journalists. Right. Because that is the basic that you just need as a journalist going in the field. You just know that there's support. You can go back and you know that you will get help. Right.
And you've reminded of me something. It actually skipped my mind. Kevin, please let's have this. The tweet, the snapshot there. I had totally forgotten it, okay? My colleague, Sadiq Shaban, you can see it's on your screen there. On that day, November the 2nd, he did write that MCK must adopt inclusivity and unity. Locking out international journalists who equally bear the brand of impunity from this event is divisive and counterproductive. What do you have to say for yourself?
You know, working for a public institution, I was also told that you will never satisfy everybody. And sometimes...
But there was no international journalist there, not even one.
Where wasn't he?
On that panel.
You know, how much does he relate? You know, some of these things are not as easy. And it's so easy for you. What did you go through to get us here in this panel? It's not that you just wake up and got us here. You take time to organize such an event and ask her. I mean, we write. Some of these things is interest. And we write to people to interest them. People know that every 2nd of November is International Day for Impunity. People know 3rd of May is World Press Freedom Day.
Yes.
They must also show interest in some of these. You don't just wait for people to come and bring them into panels.
All right.
They must show interest.
Okay, Sadiq, there you go. 30 seconds each, please. Closing remarks. Akela, I'll start with you. 30 seconds.
When we're having this conversation, let us have a solution-based discussion. Let us also think about what are we going to do going forward. It's also very good that we're having this discussion because journalists really, we do not cover issues that affect journalists as much. So if we can give more, coverage for issues that actually affect journalists and give them, extensively, cover it extensively and also offer solutions.
Right.
That will be my closing.
We're completely out of time. 30 seconds, sir, please.
No, it's fine. And the international media must know we support international media, and you can ask Kennedy Wandera that we have related with them and given them support.
He's my
and
friend.
we can never reach everybody. So, but the conversation must continue. And I also want to urge you to frequently bring such discussion on your shows.
And please come.
This is why we can create awareness among some of these things.
You promise to come when we call you?
I have never missed any show.
That's a promise on national television live.
Because that's the work the Kenya payers pay me to do. So why would I refuse?
Most definitely. Asante. Thank you so much, Mr. Victor Bure, Director, Media Training and Development at MCK. Akela Odonyo, Secretary General, Crime Journalists Association of Kenya. Isaiah Gwengi, a journalist from the Standard Media Group. Kelechi Emekalam, journalist from Nigeria. Thank you so much for your time and your contribution. I do appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your time and your company, okay? Thank you to the entire crew that made this production a success. My name is Grace Kuriakanja. Do have yourselves a lovely night.